Isabella Romano had just 3 days until her perfect life fell apart. That was when she had to face her family for Christmas in the Hamptons. It was when her mother would look at her with pity and ask the same devastating question. "Still no one special, Isabella?" The words sounded like concern, but they were pure judgment. At 29, she was a failure in their eyes. She had not found a man. To see how a simple lie to survive Christmas became a deadly romance, make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button if you think the wrong person can sometimes be the right one, and let me know where you're watching from. The city outside Isabella's office window was a winter wonderland, but she saw none of it. Her fingers were stiff over the keyboard, the words on her screen a meaningless blur. Panic squeezed her chest like a fist. Her phone buzzed, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over her. It was her mother. "We are so excited to see you, darling. Please bring someone this year." Her uncle's cruel comments were the worst. Last year, he asked if she was gay. Then he suggested she was just too picky, too ambitious. The unspoken message was clear. She was broken, unlovable. But that was a lie. She was a top lawyer with a gorgeous apartment and a life she had built herself. To her family, none of it mattered. They only saw the empty chair next to hers. It was 9 in the evening on a Friday. Everyone else had gone home, but Isabella stayed late. Work was a shield against her lonely apartment. Then she heard a man's voice speaking Italian in the hallway. It was not the familiar dialect of her family. This was rougher, older. It sounded like danger. Using her empty coffee mug as an excuse, she walked toward the sound and saw him. His back was to her as he spoke on the phone. He was tall, with broad shoulders that strained against a perfectly tailored suit. When he shifted, she saw a sharp jaw and a straight nose. Then he turned. Their eyes locked, and the world seemed to stop. He was impossibly handsome, with features like a marble statue. His dark eyes were so intense, she felt like he could see every secret she owned. A faint scar through his left eyebrow only made him more attractive. He ended his call without looking away from her. The silence in the room was electric. "I am sorry," Isabella whispered. "I did not mean to interrupt." "You interrupted nothing," he replied. His voice was deep, with a trace of an accent that was captivating. His English was flawless, but the Italian underneath was undeniable. "I am Dante Moretti," he said, closing the distance between them. He moved like a hunter. "Isabella Romano," she answered, offering her hand. His touch was warm and sent a shock through her. He held her gaze for a long moment. "Romano," he said thoughtfully. "Italian?" "My grandparents were from Sicily," she explained. "And you?" "Naples," he said. "A long time ago." His tone suggested a complicated past. "What are you doing here so late?" Isabella asked, realizing he was a stranger. "I do not work here," Dante said with a faint smile. "I was meeting with a partner about business." He was intentionally vague, and her legal instincts flared. Before she could press him, her phone buzzed again. It was her mother, demanding to know if she was bringing a guest. Isabella groaned in frustration. "Is everything all right?" Dante asked, his voice full of real concern. "Family," she said with a bitter laugh. "It is complicated." "Family always is," he stated, not asked. He understood perfectly. "How did you know?" she asked. "I know that kind of stress," he said. "The holidays have a way of making things worse." She could not help but smile. "That is exactly right," she said. Something about his steady gaze made her confess everything. "My family is obsessed with why I am single. Every holiday is an interrogation about why I am not married. My mother sends me dating profiles. My uncle is rude. My cousins pity me. I'm just so tired of feeling like my career means nothing because I do not have a husband." She stopped, suddenly embarrassed. "I am sorry for all that." "Strangers are the easiest to be honest with," Dante said softly. She looked at him again, really seeing him this time. The custom suit, the expensive watch, the handmade shoes. This was not just business money. This was serious wealth. But it was more than that. He carried himself with a quiet power, a sense of controlled danger. His eyes never stopped moving, scanning the room even as he focused on her. "What kind of business are you in?" she asked. "Import and export," he answered smoothly. "My family is in real estate, shipping, the usual things." The words felt like a lie. Before she could stop herself, she said something insane. "Can I ask you a crazy question?" His scarred eyebrow rose. "Those are the best kind. Would you pretend to be my boyfriend?" The question tumbled out. Isabella immediately wanted to take it back, her face burning. "Oh my God, forget I said that. I should go." She turned to flee, but his hand gently circled her wrist, stopping her. "Wait," he said. "Tell me more." Her heart hammered in her chest. "My family has a Christmas party in 3 days," she explained. "They will not stop asking about my love life. I thought if I brought someone, they would finally stop, but this is insane. I do not even know you." "This is a crazy idea. Forget I said anything." But Dante did not release her wrist. His thumb rested on her pulse, and he had to feel how fast her heart was beating. "What would this arrangement require?" he asked. His voice was low. "Just one night?" Isabella nodded, a flicker of hope in her chest. "One dinner, Christmas Eve. A few hours at most. You just have to be my boyfriend. We can create a story for how we met. That is all. And what would I get from this?" Isabella's stomach fell. She was so lost in her own problem, she never considered his side. "I can pay you," she offered. "I know it sounds awful, but I have money saved." His expression darkened, a flash of offense in his eyes. "I do not want your money, Isabella." "Then what do you want?" she asked. He studied her face for a long moment. Then a small smile appeared, but it did not reach his eyes. "How about a trade? You act as my girlfriend for a family event, and I will do the same for you." Isabella blinked in surprise. "You need a fake girlfriend, a man who looks like you, especially a man who looks like me," Dante answered. "My family has expectations. They have chosen the people they want for me. Bringing someone they do not expect, someone real and beautiful who is not from their world, would help me." The word beautiful hung between them. Isabella felt her face grow warm. "So we would be helping each other," she said. "Exactly," he confirmed. "No money, no duties beyond the dinners, just two people fixing a problem." He held out his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Isabella looked from his hand to his face. Her mind screamed that this was a terrible plan. He was a stranger. She knew nothing about him. But the part of her that was tired of being judged was louder. She took his hand. "Deal." His grip was warm and strong. This time, when he smiled, it was real. "We should trade numbers," he said, taking out his phone. "And we should meet before the events, to make our story believable." "Right," Isabella agreed, trying to act professional. "When is your family event?" "New Year's Eve," Dante said. "My mother is having a formal party. You will need a nice dress. I have dresses. Isabella said, a little defensively. "I go to formal parties." "Of course," Dante said, his eyes full of amusement. "I only mean that my mother is very traditional. She will notice every detail." "Great," Isabella whispered. "No pressure at all." After they exchanged numbers, Dante sent her a text. "This is my address. Come over tomorrow around noon for lunch. We need to work out the details." "To your address?" Isabella asked, feeling a surge of fear. "Should we not meet in public?" Dante watched her, considering his words. "Isabella, I must be honest. For this to work, we have to trust each other. My life is not simple. There are people who watch me. If we want our families to believe us, we need privacy to become comfortable together." "People watch you?" Her legal mind was now on high alert. "What business are you in?" "Import and export," Dante said again, but his tone was a clear warning. "That is all you need to know. If you are not comfortable, we can stop this now." Isabella knew she should leave. Her instincts told her this man was dangerous. But something in his eyes felt honest. "Tomorrow at noon," she said. "Send the address." Dante's smile was one of approval. "My driver will pick you up." "That is not needed." "It is," he insisted. "My home is not easy to find, and if we are dating, I would not let you take a taxi." The gallantry should have felt silly. Instead, it made her feel warm. "Fine," she agreed and gave him her address in Tribeca. His eyebrows lifted. "A good neighborhood." I manage, Isabella said with a small smile. Dante let out a deep, real laugh. I am sure you do. He looked at his expensive watch. I need to go. My driver is here. But one more thing, Isabella. Yes? When we are with our families, we must be convincing. That means we have to be comfortable with touching. Will that be a problem for you? Isabella's throat went dry. His eyes were locked on hers. No, she said. No problem. Good, he whispered. Then he reached out and tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. His fingers brushed against her cheek for a moment. Because you are a beautiful woman, Isabella Romano, it will not be hard to pretend I am falling for you. And then he was gone. Isabella stood alone, her hand on her cheek where he had touched her. She wondered what she had just done. The next morning, Isabella changed her clothes 4 times. She told herself it was just business, but her hands shook. She finally chose dark jeans, a soft sweater, and good boots. At exactly 12 o'clock, her doorman called. Miss Romano, a driver is here. Downstairs, a black Mercedes was waiting. A man in a perfect suit stood by the door. He was older, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Miss Romano, he said, I am Marco. Mr. Moretti sent me. He opened the door, and Isabella slipped inside. The car smelled like new leather as they moved into the city traffic. Where are we going? Isabella asked. Mr. Moretti lives in Brooklyn, Marco replied, on the waterfront in Red Hook. Isabella knew the area. It was industrial, but also beautiful, with views of the Statue of Liberty. It was also very private. When they arrived, Isabella was stunned. It was not an apartment. It was a whole warehouse, 4 stories of red brick and giant windows right on the water. This is his home? She asked. One of his homes, Marco corrected. He opened her door and she stepped onto a stone driveway. The front door opened. Dante was standing there. He was dressed in dark jeans and a black sweater. His hair was still a little wet. In the daylight, he was even more handsome. Isabella, he said, and the sound of her name in his Italian accent made her feel a sudden warmth. Welcome. She walked toward him, aware of Marco behind her. She saw the security cameras on the building. She was entering a world she did not understand. Thank you for having me, she said, feeling foolish. This was business, not a date. But Dante just smiled. Come inside. It is cold out here. The inside of the warehouse stole her breath. The entire ground floor was one enormous open space. The loft was a statement of power. Ceilings 20 feet high, exposed brick, and massive windows that bathed the expensive minimal furniture in light. Isabella turned in a slow circle, taking in the gallery-worthy art and the professional-grade kitchen. This place is incredible, she said. Dante watched her, pleased. I need space, he said. I value my privacy. Isabella caught herself before she could say something judgmental. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It is fine, he interrupted gently. You are right to be careful. You do not know me. This entire situation is unusual. That is an understatement, she said, a small smile appearing. Dante laughed. Come, we should eat. We have things to discuss. The dining table was already set for 2. An older woman with kind eyes emerged from the kitchen. This is Rosa, Dante explained. She has been with my family my whole life. Rosa served them plates of carbonara. The smell was so good it made Isabella realize she was starving. Eat, Rosa said, her tone firm like a grandmother. You are both too thin. She then returned to the kitchen. Your family seems as worried about you as mine, Isabella said, taking a bite. The pasta was perfect. Dante's smile faded slightly. My family's concerns are more complicated, but yes, they have opinions. This food is amazing, Isabella said, trying to change the subject. Rosa is the best, he agreed, eating with an easy grace. So, she said after a moment, should we create our story? How did we meet? Dante put down his fork. His dark eyes were intense. Let us start with the truth. We met at your office. You were working late. I was there for a meeting. We saw each other in the break room. I noticed you immediately. Isabella felt her cheeks grow warm at his last words. And I thought you were interesting, she offered. Interesting, Dante repeated with a hint of amusement. I can work with that. How long have we been seeing each other? 3 months, she suggested. It is long enough to be serious, but not so long people expect us to live together. Dante nodded. 3 months? Our first date was dinner in Little Italy. You wanted to impress me with your roots. A small smile touched his lips. Did it work? The food was good, Isabella teased. The company was acceptable. Acceptable, he said, his voice dry. You are too kind. Fine, she grinned. You were charming. You told stories about growing up in Naples. You acted like a perfect gentleman, which I suspect you are not. A dangerous light flickered in his eyes. You are very observant. No, not always, but I would be with you, or you will be for our arrangement, she reminded him. They spent the next hour inventing their relationship. They were exclusive after the second date. Dante did not share. They had explored the city on weekends. She had met Rosa, but not his family. He had met her friend Claire, but not her parents. That was why the holidays were so important. What do your parents do? Dante asked. My father is a retired accountant, Isabella said. My mother was a teacher. They live in Westchester. They are good, kind people who want me to have children. Do you want children? The question was too personal for a fake relationship. Someday, maybe, she answered honestly. My career is important to me right now. Dante did not seem to judge her. That sounds honest, he said. And honesty is rare. His phone buzzed and he looked at the screen. His expression turned to stone. Excuse me. He stood and walked to the other side of the room, speaking in rapid, angry Italian. Isabella could not understand the words, but the tone was cold and full of authority. It was a side of him she had not seen, and it scared her. When he came back, he was calm, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. Everything okay? She asked. Business, he said, his voice clipped. Nothing you need to worry about. But she did worry. What kind of arrangement was this? Dante seemed to read her mind. My family is not like yours, Isabella. They are complicated. There are rules you will not understand, but I promise you will be safe. No one will disrespect you. I will protect you. It feels like you are leaving a lot out. Because I am, he said simply. The honesty was shocking. Most men would lie. Can I ask you something? She said. Are you dangerous? He was silent for a long moment, considering his answer. I can be, he finally said, but not to you, never to you. His certainty should have terrified her, but it did not. It made her believe him. The rest of the meal was easier. They talked about books and music. Isabella learned he spoke 5 languages and loved opera. She told him about law school and her love for bad reality television. By the time they finished, she felt like she knew him, or the part of him he allowed her to see, and against her better judgment, she liked him. As Marco brought the car around, Dante walked her to the door. We should practice, he said suddenly. Practice what? Being a couple, touching each other. He stepped closer, not too close, but enough for her to feel his body heat and smell his cologne. May I? He asked softly. Her heart started pounding. Yes. He reached out slowly, giving her time to back away, and cupped her face in his warm, slightly rough hands. The touch sent a shock through her. His thumbs stroked her cheekbones as he studied her face. You are beautiful, he said quietly. When I say that in front of my family, it will be the truth. Her voice was just a breath when she tried to speak. He was so close now she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. If I kissed you, he whispered, would you stop me? She should say yes. She had to remember this was all pretend, but the word that came out was no. Dante's eyes flared with a look of triumph. His thumb traced her bottom lip and her eyelids fluttered shut, but the kiss never came. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers. Not yet, he whispered. When I kiss you, it will not be for practice. He stepped away, and the sudden loss of his warmth made her feel cold. Marco held the car door open. Dante was the gentleman again. I will get you Monday morning, he said. 9 o'clock. Pack a bag. We're going to the Hamptons. How could they know? Isabella asked, her thoughts racing. She had never told them. Your mother sent a text this morning, Dante explained. I saw you were about to cancel, so I convinced you otherwise. But how did you see my text? I told you, Dante's eyes held a dark humor. I pay attention. The drive back was a complete blur. Isabella tried to make sense of everything. She knew she should feel afraid. Dante was clearly involved in something dangerous. He had men watching him and knew things he had no right to know. Yet all she could feel was the memory of his hands on her skin, his body pressed close, and the weight of his promise. When I kiss you, it will be real. Monday morning arrived far too soon. Isabella packed her overnight bag 3 different times, completely unsure of what she needed. She eventually chose casual clothes for the drive, a nice dress for lunch, and her heaviest coat. At 9 o'clock sharp, her doorman announced Dante was in the lobby. Taking a deep breath, Isabella grabbed her things and went to meet him. He stood by the elevators in dark jeans, a black sweater, and a wool coat that cost more than her rent. The moment he saw her, a smile transformed his face and made her knees feel weak. "Ready?" he asked. "As I will ever be," she replied. Dante took her bag without a word, throwing it over his shoulder as if it were weightless. He guided her outside with a hand on the small of her back. The touch was light, but sent a wave of warmth through her. The same Mercedes was waiting with Marco at the wheel, but Dante joined her in the back. As they drove toward the tunnel to Long Island, he turned to her. "I am terrified," Isabella admitted. "My mother will interrogate you. My father will silently judge you. My uncle will make crude jokes, and everyone will be deciding if you are good enough." "Good enough for what?" Dante asked. "For me. For our family. For the life they imagine I should have." Dante reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. His grip was warm and strong, and it felt completely natural, as if they had done this 1,000 times. "Then we will just have to show them I am," he said with simple confidence. The drive took nearly 2 hours. They spoke easily, adding details to their made-up story while also getting to know each other. He seemed truly interested in her legal cases. She carefully questioned him about his business. He avoided details, but spoke of the stress of managing his companies, dealing with difficult staff and demanding clients. The house in the Hamptons was just as she remembered. A large colonial home her parents had worked for years to afford, back when the area was still within reach for a family like hers. It was white with black shutters and a wide porch, beautiful in a classic, simple way. Several cars already filled the driveway. Her aunt and uncle, always early, were here. Isabella's stomach clenched with nerves. "Last chance to run," she said, trying to sound like she was joking. Dante squeezed her hand. "I do not run from my commitments, Isabella." "I do not either," she confessed. "Then let us begin." He stepped out of the car first, then came around to open her door and get her bag from the trunk. Each movement was graceful and sure, the habits of a man raised with old-fashioned manners. Her mother must have been watching from a window because the front door swung open before they reached the steps. Isabella, darling, her mother, Maria Romano, rushed toward them in a cloud of perfume. She was a small woman, barely 5'2", with dark hair threaded with silver, but her eyes were not on her daughter. They were fixed on Dante. "And who is this handsome man?" "Mom?" Isabella began, trying to keep her voice even. "This is Dante Moretti, my boyfriend." The word boyfriend felt strange, but Dante played his role without flaw. He set down her bag and offered his hand to Maria. "Mrs. Romano," he said with a warm smile. "It is a pleasure to meet you. Isabella has told me wonderful things." Maria took his hand, too excited for formal behavior. "Please, call me Maria. Let me get a good look at you." "Oh, Isabella, you failed to mention how handsome he is." "Mom," Isabella pleaded, feeling her face burn. Maria just laughed. "Come inside, both of you. Everyone is waiting to meet him." The house was warm and smelled of pine from the Christmas tree. Her father, Robert, came out of his study. He was tall and thin, with gray hair and a reserved nature, though his eyes were kind. "Dad, this is Dante." Robert shook his hand, and Isabella saw her father's firm, evaluating grip met with equal strength from Dante. It was a silent test that all fathers give. "Mr. Romano," Dante said with respect. "Thank you for having me in your home." Robert gave a slow nod. "Maria said you are in business." "What kind?" "Import and export," Dante answered smoothly. "My family owns shipping companies, real estate, and restaurants. We have many interests." "Sounds profitable," Robert stated. "It keeps me occupied," Dante said. Then he added, Though Isabella keeps me more occupied, she reminds me there is more to life than business. It was the perfect thing to say. Robert's expression softened and Maria beamed with pride. Come, Maria said, taking Dante's arm. The living room was crowded. Her Uncle Vincent and Aunt Teresa were there, loud as always. Her cousins, Angela and Marie, were there with their husbands. The room was a chaos of family noise. But when Dante walked in, everyone fell silent. You could feel the shift in the air. Isabella knew why. He looked like a man from a different world. He was tall, handsome, and carried an aura of quiet power that demanded respect. In his expensive clothes, with his perfect posture, he was an exotic presence in their ordinary home. Everyone, Maria announced, this is Dante, Isabella's boyfriend. The reaction was instant. Her cousins exchanged a look that said, how did she manage that? Uncle Vincent stood, sizing Dante up with his usual lack of subtlety. Dante Moretti, Dante said, shaking his hand. Vincent's grip was a clear test of strength. You are Italian? He asked directly. I am, Dante replied calmly. My family is from Naples. Good, Vincent grunted, as if this was crucial information. We are Sicilian. Which part? My grandparents were from Palermo, Dante said. Vincent's eyes narrowed. Palermo. What were their names? Dante answered without pause. Giovanni and Lucia Romano. For a moment, Vincent was still, and Isabella saw something flash in his eyes. Was it recognition? Then he nodded. Romano, a good family. Sit down, he ordered. Tell me about your business. The afternoon became a whirlwind. Dante was flawless. He charmed Maria with praise for her cooking and discussed economics with Robert. He handled Vincent's intrusive questions and entertained her cousins with a story about a cooking class where Isabella nearly burned down the kitchen. That is not what happened, Isabella protested. It is a slight exaggeration of the truth. A good story requires some drama, Dante said with a smile. You set an oven mitt on fire, she corrected. That is not a small detail. But they were all laughing, and Isabella found herself having a good time. Dante seemed to belong, even though he was so different. He was polite but not fake, friendly, but not too familiar. He played the part of her loving boyfriend so well that she almost believed it was real. Almost. Every time his hand found her back, or his fingers linked with hers, she felt a shock of awareness. This was an act, but it felt more genuine than anything she had known for years. After lunch, her mother pulled her into the kitchen. Isabella, she whispered, her eyes wet with tears. He is a wonderful man. I know, Mom. Where on earth did you meet him? And why did you keep him a secret? We wanted to be certain, Isabella lied, the words coming more easily now. But he is in love with you, her mother declared. I see how he looks at you, as if you are the only one here. Isabella's throat felt tight. Mom, please do not get carried away. Too late, Maria said, dabbing her eyes. I am already imagining the wedding. Your father approves of him, too, and you know how picky he is. Please, Isabella begged, let us just see how things go. We are not rushing. Her mother hugged her. I am just so happy for you, my darling. You deserve a man who looks at you that way. Isabella found Dante speaking fluent Italian with her father and uncle, who were both nodding in approval. Her cousin Angela was shocked. Vincent is never impressed, she whispered. Good job. When Angela called him gorgeous, Isabella felt a protective urge. He is also kind, she said, surprised by her own words. Angela simply smiled and agreed that Isabella had done very well. Isabella's anxiety faded as Dante masterfully handled her family's questions. He moved gracefully from inquiries about his intentions to his thoughts on children. But his response to her sister Marie left the room silent. He took Isabella's hand and said, When I am with her, everything else is just background noise. The answer was perfect, romantic enough to be believed, yet vague enough to hide their lie. The intensity in his eyes as he spoke almost made Isabella believe him. Later, she watched her mother Maria speak quietly with Dante before giving him a tight hug. As they walked to the car, Isabella had to ask what she said. She told me I'm good for you, Dante said softly. She sees that I care, and that I am always welcome in your family. Does that feel strange? Isabella asked. Being welcomed into something that is not real? Dante stopped walking and faced her in the dim light of the driveway. What if it became real? He asked, his voice low. What if we stopped pretending, Isabella? He gently framed her face with his hands. Since the moment I met you, I cannot think of anything else. You see right through my walls. This arrangement was supposed to be simple, he continued, his forehead touching hers. But for me, it is not simple anymore. Do you feel this too? Her mind raced with warnings. He was dangerous, a stranger. But her heart gave a different answer. Yes, she whispered. I feel it too. He let out a shaky breath before his mouth found hers, starting a kiss that was soft and tentative. But when she gripped his coat, everything broke loose. The kiss turned demanding and passionate, releasing all the tension that had grown between them. They broke apart, both breathing hard. This complicates everything, he murmured, but a smile touched his lips. Isabella knew she should be afraid of how fast this was happening, but all she felt was a deep sense of rightness. The entire mood had shifted for the drive back to the city. Dante held her hand all the way home, the silence between them filled with new promises. At her building, he walked her to the door. I will see you on Christmas Eve. I will pick you up at 4. She thanked him for the wonderful day. It was easy because of you, he said, then gave her a sweet kiss before leaving. Isabella stood in the cold air, her heart pounding, wondering what she had just set in motion. The following days were a blur of work and constant texts with Dante. They shared pictures and small details of their lives. On December 23rd, she finally asked about his family. His reply was immediate. New Year's Eve. A very formal dinner at my mother's house. You will meet everyone who matters. When she said it sounded ominous, he simply wrote back, You will be fine. I will be with you. On Christmas Eve, Isabella took extra care getting ready, choosing an elegant emerald green dress. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a woman who looked genuinely happy. Dante arrived at exactly 4, with an enormous bouquet of white roses. In a charcoal sweater, he looked impossibly handsome. You are beautiful, he said, his simple sincerity making her blush. He then gave her a second, smaller gift box. This is for your mother, he explained. Inside was a beautiful gold bracelet. I wanted to show my respect. The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought tears to Isabella's eyes. Her parents' house was already buzzing with the happy noise of the holiday. The entire home smelled of seafood for the traditional Feast of the 7 Fishes, mixed with joyful laughter. Dante fit in seamlessly. He helped in the kitchen, talked sports with her uncles, and played on the floor with the children. Yet, through it all, his attention never truly left Isabella. His hand would find hers, or his eyes would meet hers across the crowded room. He watched her as if her happiness was his only goal. After the meal, the family moved to the living room to exchange gifts. Isabella's hands trembled when she opened Dante's gift. It was a first edition of her favorite novel, a detail she had mentioned just once. He remembered. This is too much, she breathed, tracing the leather binding. Nothing is enough for you, he answered quietly. His eyes locked on hers. She could feel her family's unspoken approval. Later, they found a moment alone on the back porch. Under a sky full of cold stars, she thanked him for being so wonderful. He pulled her into his arms, holding her against his chest. I should be the one thanking you, he said, his voice deep. You reminded me what family is supposed to be. He chose his next words with care. My family is not like yours. We do not have this warmth. Everything comes with conditions. Expectations. Being with you, with your family. It's like I'm recalling a feeling I had completely forgotten. Isabella shifted in his arms to look at him. Tell me about your own family. Not now, Dante said, his expression darkening. After the new year, once you've met them, we can talk. You will see why then. You are making me a little nervous, she confessed. I am sorry, he said, holding her face between his hands. I do not want to, but I need you to believe in me. Can you do that? Isabella knew the logical answer was no, that she should be demanding the truth. But his eyes held a raw emotion, a true vulnerability that silenced her rational mind. "Yes," she finally said, "I believe in you." "That is all I need," Dante replied, kissing her gently. "For now." The week that followed was a whirlwind of private moments. He would bring dinner to her apartment, and they would watch films on her sofa. She visited his warehouse, where he made her a simple pasta he had learned from Rosa. They spoke for hours, their conversations building something real on a strange foundation. Their kisses were frequent and passionate, leaving her wanting more. Yet Dante was always patient, never demanding. His self-control was more alluring than any forceful advance. On the morning of New Year's Eve, a car arrived for Isabella. A garment bag was inside, along with a note in his distinct, sharp handwriting. "Wear this. You will be the most stunning woman in the room. You always are." The bag held a black silk gown so elegant it stole her breath. It fit her as if it were custom-made. A velvet box contained a pair of simple, beautiful diamond earrings. Isabella knew they were real and cost a fortune, but the gift did not feel like a payment. It felt like Dante was giving her armor for the fight she was about to face, and tonight truly felt like a battle. At 7 in the evening, Dante arrived to get her himself. He wore a tuxedo, and the sight of him made her heart stop. He looked like a fantasy, powerful and handsome, with his attention fixed only on her. "You look," he began, but words failed him. His gaze moved over her so intense it made her blush. "Perfect. You are perfect. Thank you for this dress," she said. "And the earrings are too much." "They are not enough," Dante said, just as he had about the book. He offered his hand. "Are you ready?" "No," Isabella admitted, "but let's go." The journey was longer than she anticipated, taking them out of the city and into the countryside. The homes grew larger until they drove down a private lane. A mansion stood at the end of it. It was 3 stories of illuminated stone, a true spectacle. Isabella's stomach twisted into a knot. "Dante, who owns this place?" "My mother," he answered softly. "Isabella, I have to tell you something before we enter." She saw the stress etched onto his face. The confident man she knew looked deeply worried. "My family," he began, and then paused to take a breath. "It is a complicated family. The work I do, the work they do, it isn't entirely legal." Isabella felt her own heart stop. "What are you saying?" "I am not a good person, Isabella," Dante said, his voice strained. "There are things I have done, things I've been a part of that you would hate. People call my family the mob, the Mafia." He hesitated for a moment. "I am next in line to lead the Moretti family." The confession hung between them in the silent car. Isabella struggled to breathe. He was part of the Mafia. Suddenly it all clicked into place. The vague talk of business, the money, the ever-watchful people, the aura of danger he wore. A voice in her head screamed for her to leave. But instead she asked, "Why wait until now to tell me?" "Because I was selfish," Dante answered plainly. "I wanted you to see the real me before you saw my title. I was afraid you would walk away if you knew the truth too early. And I needed this chance with you, Isabella." She had to ask. "Are you in danger?" "Always," he conceded. "Will you put me in danger?" "Never," he promised with ferocity. "I will protect you with my life. No one from my world will ever harm you." Isabella's thoughts were racing. This was madness. She was a lawyer. Dating a mobster was unethical, maybe even a crime. But her heart was screaming louder than her brain. "Do you harm people who are not involved?" she asked. "No," Dante replied. "We have rules. We do not touch civilians. We leave women and children out of it. Our business is with others who chose this life. It is not honorable, but it is not chaos." "Can you ever leave it?" she asked. "There is no way out," Dante said softly. "This is my blood. I was born to this life and will die in it. But I can shield you from it completely." You would never have to witness that part of me. You would only have to accept that it is there. Isabella looked at this beautiful, dangerous man who had shown her nothing but gentleness. Every logical instinct told her to run, but she remembered how he charmed her family, how he found her favorite book, and how he looked at her as if she were priceless. "I should go," she said. "You should," Dante quietly agreed, his expression blank, but his eyes filled with pain. "I would not try to stop you." But instead of leaving, Isabella reached out and took his hand. "I am not going to." Dante's eyes widened in surprise. "What are you saying?" "I am not saying I approve or understand, but I am saying I want to learn more. I want to meet your family and see this world for myself. Then I will make my choice." "Are you certain?" Dante asked, his voice trembling just a little. "No," she answered, "but I am certain about us. And perhaps that is enough for a start." Dante pulled her into a tight embrace. "You are either the bravest woman I know," he whispered into her hair, "or you are the most foolish." "Maybe I am both," she replied with a small smile. The mansion's interior was even more stunning than its outside. Marble floors and crystal chandeliers were everywhere. The art belonged in a museum, and dozens of people in formal attire turned to stare as Dante walked in with her. "Dante," a woman's voice called. The approaching woman looked like an older version of him, perhaps 60, but incredibly elegant. She had his same intense eyes and wore diamonds as if they were nothing. She carried herself like a queen. "Mama," Dante said, his tone becoming more formal, "this is Isabella Romano, my mother, Francesca Moretti." Signora Moretti gave Isabella a sharp, calculating look. "Romano," she repeated. "Sicilian?" "My grandparents came from Palermo," Isabella said, her voice steady. Francesca's face softened just a little. "A good line. Come here." She circled Isabella like a predator inspecting its prey. "The dress is good taste," Francesca finally said. "The diamonds are suitable. You have good posture and you seem confident." She stopped directly in front of Isabella. "But are you strong enough to be with my son?" "I do not know," Isabella said with honesty. "But I want to find out." Francesca watched her for another second before a smile appeared. It was not a warm smile, but it was not unkind. Direct. "I can respect that. Come." The rest of the evening felt like a dream. Dante introduced her to a long line of relatives and business partners. They all had Italian names and shared that same look of quiet authority. They were polite, but she felt their eyes on her all night, judging if she was worthy of Dante. One older man, maybe 70, with silver hair and cold eyes, watched her more than anyone. He finally came over to them. "Dante," he said, "introduce me to your friend." "Uncle S," Dante said, a new tension in his voice. "This is my girlfriend, Isabella Romano." Salvatore Moretti's cold gaze locked onto her. "You are a lawyer," he stated. It was not a question. "Yes," Isabella replied, wondering how he knew. "And you know what this family is?" "Dante has told me," she answered carefully. "And it does not bother you?" She considered giving a polite, dishonest answer. But his stare told her he would know if she lied. "I am absolutely terrified," Isabella said, "but my feelings for Dante are stronger than my fear." For just a moment, something shifted in Salvatore's cold eyes. It looked almost like approval. He called her brave, or perhaps foolish. Time would decide. When he left, Isabella was trembling. Dante whispered that she had done well, that his Uncle S was the hardest man to please. Dinner was a formal affair with endless courses of perfect food. Isabella sat beside Dante and his cousin Marco. Marco smiled warmly, saying she was the one who finally captured Dante's focus. He explained that their life was not simple. It was filled with pressure and danger. Dante carried the heaviest burden because he was being trained to lead. This made trust difficult for him. "But he trusts you," Marco said with a direct look. "That is important." After dinner they danced. Dante pulled her close as a quartet played. He told her she was doing wonderfully, that everyone liked her. Isabella confessed that his uncle terrified her. Dante agreed. "He is a terrifying man," he said, but he respects strength, and you showed him that. As they moved together, she relaxed in his arms. The night was intense, but not as bad as she had feared. These were dangerous people, but they were also a family. They were bound by complex rules she did not yet understand. Near midnight, Francesca asked for everyone's attention. The room fell silent. She stood on a small stage, her presence commanding. She announced that they gathered not just for a new year, but for a transition. Her son Dante would officially take control of the family in the spring. Applause filled the room. Dante's face remained a careful mask, but Isabella felt the tension in his grip. A great leader needs a strong partner, Francesca continued. A man cannot rule by himself. Her eyes found Isabella. I have had the pleasure of meeting Isabella Romano tonight. She is a woman of intelligence and courage. She understands who we are and has chosen to stand with my son. There was more applause as all eyes turned to Isabella. Her face grew hot. If Dante chooses to make this permanent, Francesca declared, she will have my blessing. The meaning of those words crashed down on her. This was not about dating anymore. This was forever. The countdown to midnight started. 10, 9, 8. Dante held her close. 7, 6, 5. I know this is a lot, he whispered. 4, 3, 2. But I am falling for you, Isabella. 1. The room exploded with cheers. Dante's kiss was not careful. It was pure passion, and it left her breathless. His hands were in her hair, and she kissed him back with the same fire, forgetting the crowd, forgetting everything but him. When they finally broke apart, she looked up into his dark eyes. I am falling for you too, she whispered. Even though this is the craziest situation I have ever been in. A slow smile spread across his face. So you will stay with me in this chaos? I will stay, Isabella promised. The car ride home was quiet. They sat in the back of the Mercedes, their hands clasped, thinking about the night. At her apartment, Dante walked her to the door. He said he understood if she needed time to think. I do not need time, Isabella said. I need you to kiss me again. He pulled her close, his kiss full of a hunger that made her weak. She fumbled with her keys and they stumbled inside, never breaking apart. The door shut, and the careful control they had maintained for weeks finally shattered. His hands were everywhere, pulling her closer. Her fingers tore at his tie, desperate to feel his skin. Are you sure? Dante asked, his eyes dark with desire. I am sure, she said. He lifted her as if she were weightless and carried her to the bedroom. There were no more words, only whispered names and the sound of breathing. Much later they lay tangled in the sheets. Dante traced patterns on her shoulder. I was so careful, he said. I told myself I would keep you separate from the darkness in my life. What changed? Isabella asked. You, he said. You changed it all. The way you look at me, the way you do not run from what I am. You make me want to be better. You are better, Isabella told him softly. You are kind and patient. That is who you are, Dante. The rest is just your job. He kissed her forehead. How did I get so lucky? You answered a desperate woman's insane offer in a coffee shop, she smiled. That is not luck, that is fate. In the following weeks, Isabella began to understand his world, but never the specific details. He owned restaurants where she never had to pay. He had connections that reached everywhere. People gave him both respect and fear. But she also saw the man he was underneath. She saw him read to children at a center his family supported. She saw how he cared for Rosa, ensuring she had everything. Her own family welcomed him. Maria called him constantly. Robert invited him to play golf. Uncle Vincent called him a good Italian boy, his highest compliment. At her job, Isabella kept the relationship quiet, but she told her best friend, Claire, who was both horrified and fascinated. You are dating an actual mobster, Claire said one Saturday. I know, Isabella replied. It is not simple. Not simple? It is crazy. What if he goes to jail? What if something worse happens? I know the risks, Isabella said. I think about them all the time, but when I am with him, I feel more alive than ever before. He truly sees me, and I see the good in him. There is so much good." Claire saw the look on her friend's face and sighed. "You love him?" "I do," Isabella confessed. On Valentine's Day, Dante took her to one of his restaurants. It was closed to the public, lit only by candles and filled with roses. Rosa had cooked a special meal for them. As they ate, Dante was clearly nervous. His usual confidence was gone. "What is wrong?" Isabella asked. "Nothing," he said. "Everything is right. And that is what scares me." He stood up and Isabella's heart began to race. She knew what was happening. "Isabella Romano," he started, his voice shaking. "6 weeks ago, you came to me with a crazy plan. I was supposed to be your fake boyfriend. But nothing about you has been simple. You have changed my entire world. You made me question everything I thought I knew about myself." He took a small velvet box from his jacket, and Isabella covered her mouth with her hands. "I am not a good man," Dante went on. "My life will never be normal. But I love you. It terrifies me how much I love you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I do not want this to be temporary or fake." He opened the box. Inside was a beautiful ring with an emerald and diamonds. "I chose the emerald," he said, "to match the dress you wore at Christmas. That was the night I knew I was falling in love with you." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Will you marry me?" Dante asked. "Will you take on this dangerous life and make it ours? Will you be my partner and my strength?" "Yes," Isabella cried. "Yes, I will marry you." With trembling hands, he placed the ring on her finger and pulled her into his arms. She was trapped in a situation with no good options. A lie was her only escape, and that lie required a dangerous man. This shows that real power offers protection when nothing else will. Keep listening to see how a desperate bargain transformed into a lifetime of love. Their wedding merged two different worlds. A traditional ceremony was followed by a reception on his family's land. Her family celebrated beside his, finding common ground. As Dante lifted her veil, his eyes were wet with tears. He whispered the words that had become their private promise. "I see you." She chose him, and he chose her. They danced under soft lights as the sun went down. His family welcomed her, but also warned anyone who might bring her harm. Her family spoke of the light Dante had brought back into her eyes. During their first dance, the world disappeared. It was only the two of them. On their honeymoon in Italy, he showed her the narrow streets of Naples where he grew up. He showed her his family's first real business, a small restaurant his grandfather started. She learned about the fear and the complications that came with his life. Danger always felt close, a shadow at the edge of their happiness. She felt isolated and exhausted from the constant need to be careful. But then she would wake up next to him. He looked at her as if she were the most important person in the world. Their life was not conventional, but it was theirs. He once asked her if she regretted saying yes. Not for a second, she told him. He fiercely promised she never would. They returned to New York to build their new life. Isabella found a new law firm that did not ask too many questions. Dante officially took leadership of his family. She watched him handle the great responsibility with wisdom. Isabella learned to live with the security and the constant threat of danger. But she also discovered the deep strength of his family's bonds. When her own mother became sick, Dante's family protected her parents as if they were their own. His connections gave her resources she could never have found otherwise. A year later, Isabella told Dante she was pregnant. He cried, something she rarely saw him do. They had a beautiful dark-eyed daughter and named her Lucia. When Isabella watched Dante hold their tiny child, she understood the man she married. He was a man capable of darkness, but he was also capable of incredible love. For her and their child, he always chose to lead with that love. A son named Roberto followed years later. On their 10th anniversary, Dante brought her back to the restaurant where he proposed. But this time, Isabella had a surprise. She gave him an envelope containing legal papers. He read through them, his confusion turning to disbelief. Isabella had bought the building that housed the coffee shop where they first met. It was scheduled to be destroyed for new condos. She could not let that happen. That place had changed both of their lives. She suggested they could make it a place for the community, a place where others might find their own unlikely love stories. Dante cried those rare tears that only she was allowed to see. They renovated the coffee shop together. It became a community center and a cafe. On one wall, they hung a small plaque that said, "Where it all began." Their story was not perfect. There were difficult days and frightening moments, but they always held on to each other. They chose each other. The desperate lie she told so long ago had become the most profound truth in her life. It started with a simple question for help, and his answer was yes. Not just for one night, but for always. For their 10th anniversary, Dante brought Isabella back to the place it all started. He recreated every detail of his proposal, but this time, she was the one with the surprise. She handed him a thick envelope. He looked at her confused. She just smiled and told him to open it. The papers inside were legal documents. As he read, his confusion melted into understanding, then into pure disbelief. She had bought the entire building, the very coffee shop where they first met. Isabella explained that it was scheduled for demolition. It was going to become luxury apartments. She could not allow that piece of their history to be erased. That little shop had changed her life. It had changed both of them. So she bought it. She told him she wanted them to build something for the community, a place where other people could meet and maybe find their own impossible love story. Dante began to cry. These were the rare tears that only she was ever allowed to see. He asked how he could have gotten so lucky. Isabella took his hands and told him they had both gambled on something that should have failed. They chose each other every single day after that. She said that was not luck. It was commitment. It was love. Together they renovated the coffee shop into a cafe and community center. They hung a small framed plaque on the wall that read, "Where it all began," with the date of their first meeting. When new couples asked about it, the staff just smiled and said it was a love story. Sometimes love finds you in the last place you would ever look. The person you believe you could never be with turns out to be the one you cannot live without. And sometimes, a desperate lie becomes the most honest thing you have ever said. The story of Isabella and Dante was not a fairy tale. They faced difficult days. There were frightening moments when the darkness of his world threatened to swallow them whole. But they never let go of each other. They always chose each other. They created a life that was not normal, but it was filled with deep happiness. And if anyone asked Isabella if she regretted her impulsive proposal to a beautiful stranger, her answer never changed. She would smile and say it was the best decision she ever made. Will you help me? Will you stand with me? Will you be mine? If you are truly fortunate, the answer to those questions is yes. Not just for one evening, and not just for show, but for a lifetime. Isabella Romano walked into that break room looking only for coffee. She walked out after meeting the love of her life. And Dante Moretti, the man everyone was afraid of, the man who wore danger like a second skin, found the one person who saw past it all. She saw the man underneath who only wanted to be seen, to be chosen, and to be loved. In the end, they gave each other what they desperately needed. She gave him her light. He gave her his safety, and together, they built a love that was real, fierce, and completely unbreakable. It all began with a lie that became the truest thing either of them would ever know.
Will you help me? Will you stand with me? Will you be mine? If you are truly fortunate, the answer to those questions is yes. Not just for one evening, and not just for show, but for a lifetime. Isabella Romano walked into that break room looking only for coffee. She walked out after meeting the love of her life. And Dante Moretti, the man everyone was afraid of, the man who wore danger like a second skin, found the one person who saw past it all. She saw the man underneath who only wanted to be seen, to be chosen, and to be loved. In the end, they gave each other what they desperately needed. She gave him her light. He gave her his safety. And together, they built a love that was real, fierce, and completely unbreakable. It all began with a lie that became the truest thing either of them would ever know.